It wasn't Purdue's best possible game, but they still get a double-digit win over a High Point in the first round of March Madness. And at the end of the day, that's all you got to do: win 6 games in a row to win a championship. So we'll break down everything that you need to know about Purdue versus High Point coming up. Maybe a little bit of a preview right here on Boilers in the Stands.
It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Alongside me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. Potentially brags on a little bit later in the show, but we will see. I know a lot of basketball on, so want to deep dive into everything, but also try to keep it relatively short, as Purdue is going to play again in 2 days because they beat High Point by 12, a game that I don't think they did not trail the entire second half. High Point pushed it to 3 at one point, and Purdue immediately got it back to 10. Maybe not the most pleasing game from just an aesthetic standpoint. Purdue shoots under 50% from the field, shoots 63% at the line, but 45 rebounds. I know we'll talk more about that. Cam Heidi with a double-double. Purdue wins, right? And that's at the end of the day. I don't really care how Purdue wins. I don't care ultimately if they win by 1 or 55. You go in and now you move on to the next game, and that's all that matters. Kraig is live. He's in Providence in Rhode Island right now. Was at the game. Kraig, I'll throw it to you. Just kind of your thoughts from the game, reaction, whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, obviously, I didn't get in here until 2 a.m. last night, so it was a super late night for me. Got up early this morning, got ready, and headed over to the game. Shout out to Providence, by the way. This is an awesome setup for hosting a game. Everything is right next to the arena. Cool little town, or I shouldn't say little. Cool city out here to walk around in a little bit before the pregame. And then we go in and we get a win. And I said postgame. When it comes to March Madness, all that it is about is surviving and advancing. It doesn't matter how you do it. We've seen teams go on to win NCAA championships that barely win their first round games. We've seen teams struggle and then come back. And if you're looking at this game, to me, it really boils down to this. One of the things that we talked about in the pregame show, Joe, was like, man, this High Point team has looked really good. And also, they've only played one team in the top 100. So what were they going to look like when they played a Power 4, Power 5 conference type team? And if you're the higher seed playing against a lower level seed that comes from one of these mid-majors that has looked good, you want to impose your will. You're supposed to have the athletes. You're supposed to have the dudes when it comes to that standpoint. And that's exactly what Purdue did. Did they shoot the ball great today? No, they didn't. But they went out and they imposed their will. You saw that especially from an offensive rebounding standpoint, end up with 19 offensive rebounds and 20 points off of those rebounds. But they did it to a degree offensive or defensively too. It wasn't perfect the entire game, but this is a team that they were going up against that was one of the best teams in the country in terms of scoring in the paint and scoring at the rim. And by and large, Purdue just didn't really let them tee off from that. So I thought really just a pretty good defensive effort, and obviously, and rebounding goes into that. Like, let's not forget, rebounding is part of defense. And just incredible effort on that standpoint all the way around. Thought they were physical, thought they played with energy. Like I said, like you said, not necessarily the prettiest from an offensive standpoint, but as a Purdue fan, you might actually be a little bit more encouraged that they figured out how to win without having to have their prettiest offensive game, because the last few games, we weren't sure if that was possible.
Yeah, that was exactly where I was going to take it next is right. Well, the negatives, the shot making wasn't there, things like that, and right, some defensive slips, but for the most part, I agree, very good good defense overall. But this is a team, right, a game that Purdue struggled offensively shooting the ball. So what they do, they made up for it with rebounding. And this is a team that, right, we don't have to dive into Purdue's tournament woes in the past, but they got to that point where it's a 3-point game and you're like, oh no, like, is this happening again? And it wasn't even like a slow pushback. It was immediately got the lead back to 10. I think they went on a 7-0 run. Like after High Point got it to, I think it was 3. If it was 3 or 4, whatever it was, somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
It was 3.
It was 3.
Because they were gonna cut it to 4 or 5 on a free throw, and then they missed the free throw, and they got 2 offensive rebounds and cut it to 3.
Yeah, exactly. And then I forget the exact sequence after that, but I just know Purdue pushed it back to 10 pretty quickly and regained control. And that is also a positive sign that, hey, yeah, Purdue has superstars and they have dudes that can make plays. And then now some of the role players are starting to step up. Heidi and Colvin, especially. Jakari, I thought, had a good game. Berg had a good first half. So now you're starting to get some of that mixed in. And when you add that all together, that's where you can kind of withstand those little runs, because High Point, as we mentioned, they are a good team. There's a reason. I think they were the highest ranked, like low major, mid low major, per KenPom, and for good reason, because they are very good and they were very good offensively. That's a team that's given Purdue issues in the past. That type of team, maybe not quite have quite the athleticism, but still, just really good to be able to see Purdue withstand a punch in the second half, late in the game, in a road environment. From what it sounded like, you can speak to that more than me, but it very much seemed like a road environment, and Purdue still just took care of business at the end of the day. And right, it didn't even come down to the final 2 minutes.
Yeah, and to that point, it was definitely a road environment. There was a moment in the second half on a timeout where Purdue had started to kind of push it back up a little bit, and Purdue fans tried to start chanting, and pretty immediately High Point started answering back and just completely drowned out the Purdue fans that were there in that timeout. You couldn't really even hear them. And Purdue did not travel well here. There's no other way to say it. At the same time, I understand everybody spent a whole lot of money last year tracking them all the way to the Final Four. So not gonna fan shame or anything like that, but there's not a big crowd of Purdue fans out here at all.
Maybe it'll jump for Saturday. Plus, who else is in the region? Like, well, I guess it's by session still, but like, it's Arkansas, Kansas, St. John's are all in that one too, right? Like,
yeah, Arkansas seemed to travel well. I saw a whole bunch of them at the airports and walking around. Really High Point and Arkansas are the 2 schools that jump out, just kind of strolling around town in the airports.
I would bet St. John shows up well too, because they're just drivable, right? They don't have to fly. But yeah, definitely understand why it's a road environment. Plus, right, there's the whole just Purdue loses to, low seeds, and everybody roots for that. And as expected, I think, right now Auburn's up 1 at about halftime against Alabama State. Like, everybody's going to root for Alabama State because that would just be funny.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, the narrative that Purdue loses to higher seeds or double-digit seeds, like historically over a 20-year span, doesn't really hold water from a percentage standpoint relative to a lot of teams. But there's a couple of glaring ones recently, obviously.
Yeah,
so
it was like 3 bad ones back to back almost. That I think that's because I understand too, right? You go back and it's like, oh yeah, Purdue's fine, but a couple bad ones right in a row. But this was not one of those. So let's get into the game. I'll pull up some stats here just to kind of look over, and then we can dive into things. TKR 21-8, Braden 26-3. Didn't shoot the ball well, 6 of 19, but still impacted the game, I think, in a positive way. Heidi 11 points and 10 rebounds, his first career double-double. And then, right, you get a Lawyer 1 of 4, but he has 8 points, 2 assists. CJ had a couple big rebounds in the first half. Jakari, he ends up with 8 rebounds, 3 points. Berg has 4 points and 2 rebounds in his limited minutes. First only plays 9 minutes, and I know this will probably be somewhat of a hotter take, but like, I thought he was pretty good in those minutes. I think Heidi deserved to play over him because he was impacting more, but I do think First was fine or solid in his minutes as well, specifically on the defensive end. Kraig, I guess, where do you want to go with this? Like, do you want to start with just hit on Braden and TKR? Do you want to jump to Heidi right away, or is there anything just else that you kind of want to hit on?
I think just high level first before we get into that. I don't think there was any doubt that a lot of guys looked tight out of the gate. And you might, think like, man, why are they tight? Like they're right back into this position. They've been in it. Well, Fletch and TKR and Braden have been in that position as kind of lead guys or starting guys before, but Jakari's never been in that moment. CJ's never been in that moment. For Miles and Cam, maybe it's a little bit different role, probably not really that much, but I really thought Braden and Cam were the only two right out of the gate that looked kind of calm, cool, and collected, and like, hey, this is just another game type of situation. There were some bad shots early. I mean, I don't remember who it was, but somebody about missed the entire rim and put it off backboard. Fletch's first one goes backboard that he was trying to just shoot as a regular shot. TK was missing some short shots.
Yeah.
Like you could tell the nerves were there. Everybody was a little bit tight. And it's like you're hearing this all coming in. That High Point's going to upset Purdue. And can they manage to get out of the first round without Zach and everything else? And I thought by the second half, like the shots still weren't going in at the rate you would like to see them go in, but I thought people really started to settle down a little bit more. You saw Miles, get some points at the rim. CJ gets a bucket. Jakari hits a three. So, like, I think when we go to round two, I think now that's out of the way. And Braden was walking off the court after the game, and you could tell he was tired because High Point did, I thought, apply better perimeter pressure than I expected coming into this game, especially on him. But you could almost also see, and I don't want to put words in it, but you could almost also see like a little sense of relief, like, all right, this one's done.
Yeah.
Now we can just go out and ball after that. But I mean, obviously Braden didn't shoot the ball well, but like you said, did a lot of other things well. They kind of held him in check and tried to force him to be a scorer early. And then he really started to facilitate more later, and TK settled in and started to get his, but a lot of guys contributed to this win. But I think that the largest contributor past those big two is Cam in this game. I mean, he never looked like the moment was too big right out of the gate. He hits his first three. He shoots 50%, and he gets 11 rebounds. And man, there were a couple of different times on those drivers where he just shuts it down. Like he steps over and help, or off of a switch, whatever, at different times, and just shut any momentum down towards the rim. And they got in the paint and kicked it out and got too many open looks from three. But I honestly was just really impressed that High Point really never got going at the rim on those drives.
Yeah, because High Point's a team that, on average, like they take, I can pull up the exact number, 40% of their shots from three on average, which is right about D1 average. And like they had to put up it was a lot more than that today. 28 threes to only 25 twos. They only get 11 free throws. I'm with you with Heidi. Like he was awesome, really on both ends, and was great. I think he made his first, if I'm remembering correctly.
First three. Yep.
Yeah. First three. Yeah. And so I think that also helps. And right. And as you said, then guys can just kind of settle in. I know this is a completely different team than last year's team, but even last year, right? That first game against Grambling State, like the first half was like, hey. And then the second half, they kind of opened up a little bit, and then they beat Utah State by 40. I'm not going to say Purdue's going to beat McNeese or Clemson by 40, but right there is probably some good thought to that now they're going to be a little bit more relaxed. You can kind of just move past this narrative thing. I know players will probably say it doesn't, like they don't hear it and all that, but I'm sure they do. Like I'm very confident they do in some capacity. Now you get to play a little bit freer. McNeese right now is up 18-8 on Clemson. I'm watching it in the background, so if I'm not looking at my camera, that is why. I'm trying to just take in some notes on Clemson and McNeese while we talk here on Boilers in the Stands. Appreciate everybody tuning in during the middle of the day, or if you're watching this back later, please consider liking and subscribing. Helps us out a lot. Helps us be able to send Kraig to Providence to cover games, and if Purdue makes the Sweet 16, we will both be in Indy to be able to cover there. So appreciate that. Jason Depew hits us with a 1999 super chat, says, at work, but checking in on my favorite guys recapping a big win. Thanks, guys. Hit the like button, everyone. And we do appreciate the support for Jason, longtime supporter in here for pretty much every show, I feel like. So appreciate that,
thanks.
even at work.
Thanks, Jason. I can go out and buy lunch now when this is done. I appreciate the $20.
There you go. Straight to Kraig's
100%. 100%.
But yeah, so is there anything else high level you want to hit on? Like I'm trying to think. I thought actually no, because now I'm thinking I have it in my head and I don't want it to go away. I feel like I talked about a little bit this week. Hey, Purdue staying in front defensively solves
Yeah.
like
Yep.
85% of their issues defensively. It was not perfect, as you said. There were some times that they were able to get the penetration and kick out, especially really early in the game, and then I think a little bit later in the game. But that middle 2/3 of the game, we'll call it, I thought Purdue was awesome. They were switching pretty much everything. Obviously, TKR was in his drop coverage against pick and rolls, but switching everything, I thought the switches were on point, and guys just looked like they moved better. Like, and I think you can go up and down the line. Like Heidi, we already talked about, was awesome. I think CJ, Jakari, Colvin all had their good moments defensively. Caleb first, when he got switched on the perimeter, I thought he was really, really good in his minutes. So you can kind of just go up and down and like, okay, yeah, the guys that are supposed to be in there for defense, they did their job. And now when you stay in front, hey, you don't actually have to rotate your defense, and you don't have to worry about not having a rim protector because you're contesting a shot. And if they make a 6-foot floater or a fall away over Jakari Harris's outstretched hand, all right, you live with it and you move on to the next play. So that was the other big thing I wanted to hit on. For a good chunk of the game, I thought they did just so much better staying in front of the ball.
And, Norlander from CBS, if you guys don't watch him or listen to his podcast, I think he does a really good job covering national college basketball coverage in general. But, he asked Painter in the postgame, like, is this your best defensive performance in a while? And I think it speaks to the fact that everybody coming into this game thought this was going to be a game in the 80s where nobody could stop anybody. And it wasn't, and Painter said, well, yeah, probably so. And he said what Painter alluded to was basically that they did such a better job. Sorry, man, I'm on like 5 hours of sleep. I haven't eaten today. So did such a better job, just perimeter defense, just keeping the guy in front of him. And then, like you said, that helps everything on the backside of it. So, some national press here recognize that too. Matt Painter spoke about it in the post-game press conference as well.
Yeah, and all right, it's simple, but hey, stay in front of the ball. It does help your defense. All right, let's get into some of the players. Unless you had anything else from presser or just high level that you wanted to throw out there.
There really wasn't a whole lot that came out from the presser today. It was like rebounding, second chance points. That was there wasn't like some magical potion that won the game today or magical formula. It was pretty glaringly obvious to everybody. So
fair enough. Have we talked about the rebounding enough? Are we going to do it on the players? 20 second chance points. Like, did we hit on that enough?
I mentioned it in my opening, just that, I mean, 19 offensive rebounds is not only is it ridiculous, it's when you put it in the context of what this team has done from a rebounding standpoint on the season and how that's been like a concern going into almost every game. I mean, that is eye popping. It
was so offensive rebounding percentage is just how many rebounds you get divided by the total number of opportunities, right? So basically, how many offensive rebounds you get divided by like your total shots missed is more or less it. Purdue today rebounded 52.8% of their misses, so 52.8% offensive rebounding percentage. That is their best all season long. They had one game against Rutgers that they had 50%. This is the only one that's been above 50% on the season. They've only had 6 games this year of above 40%, and 2 of them came against USC, ironically. So like it, as you said, it's not just like, oh, Purdue was really good on the glass. No, like Purdue was like their best effort on the glass, specifically the offensive glass, all season long. And getting that in this game where shots aren't really falling like they normally do, and High Point has an offense that can get going, it was a big time just kind of counter of like, all right, let's just go grab 20 rebounds and offensive rebounds and we're going to be fine. I mean, they almost had more. They had 19 offensive rebounds. High Point had 24 total rebounds. Like, you're gonna you do that and you have 2 less turnovers. You're gonna win a lot of games.
Yeah, that's probably the other thing we should know is Purdue had less than 10 turnovers in this game. They finished with, how many did they end up with?
7. And High Point had 9.
turnovers. And yeah, when Purdue's under 10 and out rebound teams, they just don't lose very much. Kind of something else, just real quick on that offensive rebounding. 37% of those offensive rebounds were collected by guards today.
That's crazy.
Like CJ, Jakari, Miles got a couple. Those guys were huge from a rebounding standpoint as well, on top of what Cam was doing. CJ's been a really good rebounding guard all year. Jakari gets in there and gets 3 today. That's just a collective team effort across the board.
Yeah, 100%. And it's highlighted by the back-to-back putback dunks, the Miles into Heidi. That was an electric sequence of Miles gets, I mean, I watched the play back. The dude didn't even look at boxing Miles out. And Miles just gets like, the court just like parted for him. It really did. And he just had a perfect gap to be able to go drive. And then the next play down, Heidi gets the putback too. So big time effort on the glass from Purdue. Missed the super chat from before. My bad. Chris R says, 499 super chat said, role players did great things today, but how about the bounce back game from TKR? Big time shot when the chips were down. And let's just flow into TKR from there. He has 21 points on 8 rebounds, 4 of them coming offensively. Didn't have an assist, but I don't think he had many opportunities to do so, truthfully speaking. Goes 10 of 16 from the field, only 1 of 5 from the line, which is his worst free throw shooting performance in a while. You mentioned it already. He didn't have the best start to the game. It was 2 of 6, if something like that, from the field, where he's getting a couple looks. You're like, man, those just aren't falling. He picks up a couple, I don't know if cheap fouls, but he picks up a couple fouls early, or a foul early, and then another one in the first half. Kind of had to get in and out of rhythm, and then the second half especially just felt like, yeah, he kind of was able to do what he wanted. 11 points in the second half, 5 of 7 from the field. What'd you see from TKR?
Well, I think just once he settled in, right, he was great. And, we see a lot of times out of halftime that Purdue's just going to go right to him and feed him. And he was definitely eating there early on. Like you said, they didn't really double. They started later in the game, kind of, sending a guy digging down a little bit harder. Might have had a chance to kick out a couple times there for an assist, but by and large, they weren't. So I thought they did do a decent job at times, kind of disrupting that little short roll between Braden and TKR. So early on, I thought maybe they kind of limited chances a little bit for him. But once he got going, he really got going. He's just got to settle in from the free throw line. I think even with him, there were a little bit of nerves and jitters today, and I would expect to see different things from him at the line. I think, obviously 8 rebounds from him is huge too, because how many minutes does he end up playing with all the back and forth that he's going in? He plays 29 minutes, so not like a huge minute game for him compared to what we've seen in some of these, and still collects 8 rebounds. So really impressive there. When he started out missing a couple of those super easy ones, and then he picked up that second foul, I thought, oh boy. Yeah. like this is what we said could not happen. Like TK and Braden have to be on shooting, and TK cannot get in foul trouble. And then that happened. But luckily everybody else kind of stepped in today all the way around. Like I said, it's a team effort to pull this one off. So I do want to kind of flow in just for a second based off of the foul talk we were just having with TK. Will Berg gave good minutes today. Like he gave, and he looks thinner to me. He looks like throughout the season he's got thinner. I honestly, today was the first day where I was like, man, he's like moving pretty well today. Not that it just like happened all of a sudden, right? But Burgess has been on and off in a boot, but he got put in the game the other day, so he's obviously available. So the coaching staff has seen something in practice from Berg in the minutes that they have played him. That's obviously let him earn those minutes. And today, with as much as they wanted to get downhill, maybe to just a little bit better fit in terms of rim protection, but like give Will Berg his props. And that little shot he hit, nice footwork to get to it and hit it. No, I thought Will was great, kind of going offense, defense in the first half for TK.
I'm with you. I thought it was very good minutes from him really throughout. Like I know he picked up a foul, maybe it was an and one where he committed the foul, but really aside from that, just kind of did his job, was in the lane, took up space in terms of defensive and made things harder for players to shoot. Got a couple boards, 2 of 2 from the field. And it more importantly than maybe just the pure numbers from him is there was no points where it was just like, oh, Berg has to get out of here with TKR in foul trouble. Like, right, we've seen that sometimes where it's like, all right, yep, Berg played 2 minutes, got to just bring TKR back in and hope he doesn't pick up a foul. It didn't feel quite like that today. And if you can manage TKR's foul trouble that way, that's massive because, right, then there gets to be a point where you can kind of just let TKR run again, right? Once he gets, 10-ish minutes left in the second half with 2 fouls, you feel good. I know he picked up a third pretty quickly after. Shout out that not being a hook and hold also.
Yeah.
But yeah, Berg was good. Like, right, I don't have too much more other than that, but hey, big time minutes from him into the spot that they needed him.
Yeah, 100%. And then I thought, like you said, just to kind of finish out the big man room. I put a tweet out that there were a couple possessions in a row that Caleb just played really, really good defense. One of them,
Yeah.
he kind of shuts the guy down, and like it ends up getting passed to somebody else, but he's the reason it led to a shot clock turnover. And then he right after that, right, he forces the same guy, Hamilton, into a travel, I think, on the very next play. So I thought he was active on. He only ends up with 2 rebounds, but he's only in 9 minutes. I thought he was active on the glass when he was in there. Does hit the one shot attempt that he takes. So, like, I thought Caleb gave good minutes. I just thought they needed that outside shooting from Cam, and Cam was also rebounding and playing defense at a high level. So when you add that one other factor in there, it's going to lead to more minutes.
Yeah, for sure. And they didn't need the size from First as much. But no, I'm with you. Like, I thought there was plenty of good things that First did, but Heidi is a spacer and First isn't, and that's a big thing when you don't need the size. It's like, hey, then that's when Heidi's going to get what he get 31 minutes today, and he deserved it and started the second half. I know somebody put way earlier. Do we think Heidi's going to start? Like, no, but I think at this point you stick with who what got you here at this point. But that doesn't mean that Heidi can't play 31 minutes again tomorrow or Saturday, because he absolutely could. So maybe we just flow into Heidi from there. Kind of work our way backwards from bigs to guards is what we're doing. It seems like 11 points, 10 rebounds, 4 of 6 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. Best game of his career, double-double, like couple big time shots it felt like, and the defense on top of it all. We've already mentioned it a couple times, just like there was just some possessions. It was just like, oh yeah, Heidi kind of saved everything there, and ability to stay in front or dig and then get back out. Just really, really impressive stuff from Heidi. Like, this is the Heidi that I envisioned off season. This was the Heidi, because I was very big on a Heidi breakout year, truthfully. And this is kind of maybe not double Heidi, but this was along those lines of like, okay, can knock down a 3, can attack the glass, and he's also a really, really good defender. So I thought I can't say enough positive words about what Heidi did today.
Yeah, 100%. And I kind of hit on it in the opening, but I just thought he was good everywhere today. And there's been some games where he's contributed rebounding, and there's been some games where he's contributed from outside shot making or his versatility defensively. But today he put it all together. And, you and I have kind of talked about this over the last 3 weeks. It's just that it's coincided with Purdue losing some games that Cam and Miles have just kind of slowly started to look like they're putting it together in terms of, adding their offense back into it. Like you said, not the biggest game from Colvin from an offensive standpoint today. The outside shot didn't go. Look like, he got a couple of those relatively early in the game when everybody still looked a little bit tight. But, if knock on wood, if those guys put it together in the same game to go along with everybody else, that kind of changes the plateau or the ceiling, I guess, of where this team might be able to go in this tourney.
To me, that's where, and 1000% not overlooking the next game, because right now McNeese is up like 15, but both teams I think can be very tough matchups. No guarantee Purdue wins. In theory, if Purdue played like a Houston in the Sweet 16, I think that's where, right, the ceiling feels kind of capped at that game for Purdue, at least by, I would say, most, just outsiders and fans. But a Heidi Colvin where you get them together having big games, that's where it's just like, oh yeah, this team I still think can beat pretty much everybody in the entire country on any given night. And continue to just kind of stack things like that. I know Colvin misses his threes, but good looks, still had good energy. could be a difference maker on how many more post game shows we have this season. Is what I'll go with there. Did you have anything else on Heidi that stood out? I feel
No,
like
because
his big thing is energy and knock down some threes.
Yeah. I already feel like I riffed on him right at the beginning quite a bit. So
yeah. And we
Oh,
are
boy.
joined by Braggs.
How we
live
doing,
from
guys?
CHGO Studios. How's it going, Braggs?
We're doing good, Greg.
You're doing good. All right. Well, hey, appreciate you guys letting me jump on. Don't know how far you're into this. Obviously, I had some work to do here at the CHGO Sports Studios. Everybody was trying to be real hard on me while the game was going on. And obviously, High Point getting it down to 3 points. I think we all, felt that tension that we felt many times with some of these higher seeds taking down Purdue. And you got the feel-good Cinderella story. We've seen it with North Texas, St. Peter's, and obviously Fairleigh Dickinson. They're showing the student announcers and everybody's having fun. There's a whole chartered jet of fans there from High Point, and that's a great story for them. But I will say, I watching that second half unfold, I got to give Purdue a lot of credit for the maturity that they showed. And, the national championship experience and that composure that comes with it. And the amount of times they've been in situations like this. And this time they said, no, it's not going to happen. We're going to just end this on our terms. And, you get into any NCAA tournament game and anything can happen. But when the bullets start flying, it's about, how do you handle that adversity? And many times before last year, we saw this team really struggle in those moments. And this time they just stayed with it. They stayed the course. And even when it got down to 3 points, Kaufman-Renn, Braden Smith, even if it wasn't Braden's best game, for whatever reason, he was having a little trouble around the rim, but it didn't stop them from what they were doing. And shout out to guys like Cam Heidi and Miles Colvin, who have had just a surge of, everything they've done here in the second half of the season. While Purdue lost 6 of their last 9 games, within that, Miles Colvin and Cam Heidi really started to elevate their level of play. And to see them have moments today that were crucial, clutch situations where they're getting rebounds, they're knocking down a 3 in the corner. Like, we kept looking at them all year like, hey, man, I know they wanted to make a jump. Where is that? Well, I think we officially saw that here, through these last month and a half and then today. And then out of nowhere, Will Berg, guys, Willie Berg, he comes into the game, and I'll admit it, I was questioning it. I know he got some minutes at the end of the season, but I'm like, is this really the moment that we're going to bust out the Will Berg package? And he shut me up real quick. What a game from him to stay in the fight and make some plays that really, change momentum in certain spots. That is such a testament to what this program is, that a guy like that can come in at the back end of this season and have an impact in a tournament game. And now they're 1 win away from heading back to Indianapolis and playing on their home turf. But, a great start here to this tournament, getting some of these youngers, this freshman class, some experience. Jakari Harris knocks down a 3, CJ Cox, these guys doing their thing. And the way that they, were able to create situations to get them in foul trouble. Obviously, the rebounding was a big part of this game, a component as well. But I just looked at it from an individual series with all these guys, and I'm very proud of them for handling the adversity in a much different manner than we've seen from some of these teams, before last year. And that is what I call the national championship composure. They showed it today. Shout out to them.
Yeah, I feel like Braggs summarized our show in 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, seriously. I was like, all right, we did that. It's like, yeah.
But you're 100%
if anybody,
right.
Well, and I refuse to not be on this show today. We got done with our work, and I'm like, I got to get on this show because we don't know what'll happen on Saturday. Anybody can win, and let's hope Purdue can get through to the second weekend. But I'd be damned if I didn't come on this show after a big win here to start the tournament, where everybody in that stadium's rooting for Purdue. I know Kraig was feeling that again. I was there when St. Peter's lost, or when we lost to St. Peter's, and what that was like, where the whole crowd's rooting against you. It sucks. And so I had to be on this show because we'll see what happens on Saturday. Yeah. But this is for everything Purdue's been through here the last month, losing some tough games, Michigan smacking them in the mouth, Illinois beating them at the end of the season. How many games did they lose where they blew a 10-point lead? Well, guess what? They had a 10-point lead at halftime, and this team did not blow today's 10-point lead. So, high points at 13 seed, and Purdue took care of what they needed to in terms of that. But I just have a lot of respect for the composure they showed down the stretch.
Yeah, 100%. The league got cut to 3, and they immediately pushed it back to 10, and they did what they needed to do. And even in a game where, Braden goes 6 of 19 from the field, I think he still impacted the game in plenty of ways. You get the contributions from the other guys, and obviously TKR does his thing. That's what they've been missing, and they kind of have that now. I'm very confident that Braden's going to bounce back. That's just who Braden is. That's how good he is. Looking at McNeese and Clemson just went to halftime. McNeese is up 31-13. So
wow,
still 20 minutes left, but McNeese is in prime position to be Purdue's opponent Saturday. I assume that'll be another early type game.
Imagine that 13 points in the first half, a Clemson team that beat Duke. Right?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I've been catching it in the background, so I haven't caught every single play. It does seem like Clemson's just ice cold, but also McNeese is, we can talk about them a little bit later, but McNeese is a physical defense. They switch everything. Basically their game plan is we are going to be more athletic and we are going to be more physical than you. We're not going to be more skilled than you, but we are just going to use our athleticism, physicality, and grind out wins that way. And so far it's worked, but I think Purdue, neither of them are easy matchups for Purdue, because we've had some people ask who should be rooting for in that. I don't think either are easy matchups by any means. I think both pose different issues, but also there are things that Purdue can take advantage on both sides. Where McNeese, yes, they're crazy athletic, but at the same time, if you can kind of control the pace and control the tempo, that takes a lot of what McNeese wants to do out of their rhythm and things like that. Where Clemson's more of a sound team. Lack some of the athleticism, but they got multiple bigs that they could throw at TKR. So, at this point, you just want to win. You just play who you got to play, and you just keep winning. And that's just how the cards fall. And we'll see what happens over the final 20 minutes. Crazier things have happened.
Kraig, were you surprised when they reviewed the hook and hold that they didn't choose to go with it?
No, he didn't pull down and he didn't clamp.
Yep.
He put his arm up through, but then you can see the player's arm be able to still move. So he's not holding. He's not doing the hold part of that. Yep. But
and it was close, but I agree, he didn't pull. So that obviously was the determining factor. I'll take responsibility for that, Boilers fans, because in studio, I was just talking about how well TKR was playing, especially in the second half. And I was like, and then one of my teammates here at CHGO said, oh, they're not fouling. And I was like, yeah, that hasn't really been the case most this year. And TKR staying out of foul trouble. And just as that happens, he committed that foul where it almost turned into, 2 free throws and possession. And then you turn around, and that was an interesting moment at the 4-minute mark, where things were still kind of, in flux. And there's a timeout from High Point. We come back to 2 free throws in ball for Purdue. And that to me, the replay obviously was what it was, but I guess I was a little surprised in that moment that they took it to a flagrant 1. I don't know how you felt about that, Joe.
I think I would have been fine either way. I think I'm cool with it, a no call, because he didn't pull. If they wanted to, they probably could have been by the letter of the law or the rule. Okay, sure. I do think it was big that it wasn't called, because as you said, right, it was coming out of timeout. It would have been 2 free throws and the ball back, and that the free throws pushed it to 4 or 5, somewhere in that area. I'm not saying if it's called Purdue loses, but I do think that it not being upgraded, obviously from beyond just giving them the ball back, I think just from a momentum and things like that, if they get the ball back, they make 2 free throws, get the ball back, and hit a 3. It's in a tough spot for Purdue to try to climb out of that, just momentum wise. Obviously, they still have the lead.
Yeah.
I didn't even see the foul that got called on them. That was F1. So got to sit on the floor today. Actually, shout out Casey Bartley for that, because there was somebody else from the Purdue press that normally beat writer type press who wasn't out here yet. So Casey swung over to their seat, and I sat in Casey's seat and got to sit floor. It's really cool sitting floor because you get to feel the game, you get to hear the game, but you also don't get to see a lot of the game because you can only see a certain part of the floor at a time. And they came back and said F1, and I was like, what? Like, what even happened? I couldn't even see it from where I was sitting, so I didn't know much about that.
It was like a shove to the back, right? Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, because I was blacking out from stress. But did it reach his head? Is that why it became a flagrant? Because it was a shove to the back that called it.
I'm going to be honest, I sort of missed the replay too. I caught the last part of it where you just see him full extend shove. Yeah. And I just assumed that was kind of where it was just right. It wasn't just like a little jab that they call the offensive fouls for. It was like a full two-hand extension, throw to the ground. So I just assumed that's kind of what they were calling.
And the interesting thing about it was High Point calls a timeout at the 3-minute and 58-second mark. And that's what then led to them reviewing that. And I tend to ask myself, had he not called the timeout, because I'm always looking, okay, under 8-minute timeouts coming, under 4-minute timeouts coming. They cross that 4-minute threshold and then all of a sudden High Point wants a timeout. And so to me, I think if they kept playing and the game flow went on, I don't know if they go back to it. So I thought that was.
They might have, just because Braden and Kaidi were really clamoring for it, you could see. But I'm with you that the timeout just allowed the refs to be like, all right, sure, why not? And no timeout would have been well, maybe they would have, if ball just gets inbounded, you kind of move on.
Right. Yeah. And so, there was a lot of shoving in the back on, rebounds coming down and stuff. So, and I'll say this much too. The goaltending that wasn't called to start the game, I was about to have a mental breakdown because it was so clear as day. And it was like, are we going to have another one of these things? And I know my guy that keeps me honest when it comes to my constant reviewing of officiating calls. But when they didn't call that goaltend, I was like, oh boy, here we go. Everybody's going to get lost in the moment here. And we're going to have a High Point game here at high noon. And I'm going to have a mental breakdown here at the studios live on the air. And I'll give them credit. I thought they went on to, call the game how it was. And there were a lot of fouls started getting racked up from High Point. And I know their head coach at certain times in the second half started to get frustrated by it. But, just because you're the underdog doesn't mean that you get to bully your whole way through the game. And the refs kind of got that under control on both sides, even at certain points. When Will Berg, when there was a little bit of a loose ball, underneath the legs of Will Berg and he kind of pushed, they called that a foul. Fine, I'll let all that go, but just make sure it's called straight on both ends. And I thought the officiating kind of held serve and didn't let the energy of the crowd in the moment kind of dictate things. So, I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah. Did you have something, Kraig? If not, I was going to bring it to Braden and Fletch because they're the two players we really haven't talked about.
You read my mind, Joe. We're on the same wavelength. Let's get back to the guards. Yep.
Yeah. So, we've gone through pretty much everybody except for Braden and Fletch at this point. My screen is really small, so I'm just assuming that's the right graphic. Yeah, it is. Cool.
Yep.
Braden has 20 points, 6 assists, 3 rebounds. It does go 6 of 19 from the field. Fletch 8 points on 1 of 4 shooting, 2 assists and a turnover. Did play 33 minutes, was a plus 16. I guess start with Braden. It's as simple as just, hey, I think there was probably 2 to 3 shots he took that it's okay, maybe take those ones back. Other than that, it's just, hey, shots gotta fall. And we look at McNeese right now. Clemson is 1 of 15 from 3 against them. Some of it is Clemson just missing shots. Some of it is McNeese's defense. I don't want to just completely ignore Clemson ability to come back because it can happen. But if it is McNeese, they want to force ISOs with switching, which means Braden's just got to make more shots tomorrow. Simple as that. Or not tomorrow.
Yeah,
Saturday.
and like early on, he came out of the gate and he drills his first few, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
we've got that Braden today. Like
Yep.
Braden's shots on, he's locked on. Like this game's going to be easy because it looked like he was going to be able to get what he wanted.
Well, it was
and-
laughable, Kraig, when the first 3 of the game from High Point, he hits it in like the dead corner, and they go on to broadcast. They go, he shot 30% from 3 all season, and collective, gasp from all Purdue fans who live that every game. But then Braden matched it, to your point,
Right.
where he started out hot.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, like I said, starts getting people set up in the second half more and being able to facilitate a little bit more. But I thought the big moment for Braden was, like your stars got to show up in big moments, and that game started to get closer, started to get tighter, and he just kind of dribbles in to his 3 at the top of the key there. And in all honesty, I thought that was probably the biggest shot of the game, because then it gave Purdue a little bit of a cushion again when it looked like momentum was really starting to go against them. So. When it mattered, and then he came right back on the next play and off that pick and roll and just gets all the way to the rim for a really easy layup there. So when it mattered from a shot making standpoint, he showed up, but man, there was a couple he missed. He gets that guy off his feet and shoots like that 2-footer, and it rims out. You're just like, oh man.
Well, I think he was anticipating trying to draw the foul there, like he has so many times, and the guy, he got him up in the air, but there was nowhere unless he was going to initiate the contact. So I think that made kind of the awkwardness of that push shot. But you're right. Like, from the scouting report we got from anonymous sources about how High Point they play 10 deep, but it might take a minute for them to figure out what lineup they have. And so sometimes they fall behind early. We didn't get that luxury from Purdue today, because High Point came out and knocked down some shots. And to your point, the 2 points that matters most at the beginning, where Purdue needed to stay with them as their excitement of being in the tournament for the first time ever kind of felt like that, gave them some, energy to, score some points at the beginning. And then at the end there, when it started to get down and tight, Braden knocks down the 3. And when the going got tough, Braden did what he had to do. But I will say this in terms of how, who am I to try to say what Braden needs to do as a first-team All-American, Big Ten Player of the Year. But I just feel like here, especially in the second half of the year, he's fallen in love so much with that fadeaway. And I understand why. It's an unblockable shot. And you get into your little pivot, all right, fadeaway, bang. And when he's cooking, it's an unblockable shot no matter if, but when you're cooking, then he's going to it a lot. And it's just dagger after dagger after dagger. But when there's that inconsistency, I just wish he'd square up. And I almost felt better when he was taking his shots from 3, because he's always squared up or more times than not squared up, versus when he was trying to navigate towards the paint and then do that fadeaway that just felt like it was always left a little short. And then the other thing I'll say too is there's always a few times in games here lately where he gets so close to the rim that I feel like he needs to be the guy that puts it up, and he'll at the very last second drop it off to TKR, and then TKR, it's like sometimes he'll put it in, but then there's other times where TKR, it's like he brings it in, it's like a rush shot, and he misses it. And I'm like wishing Braden had just gone up with it himself. And you saw at the end of the game where there was a big moment where Braden just went up with it. And I believe it was Will Berg that got the rebound and put it right back in. So sometimes good things happen. I know you want to drop it off to TKR because he's the guy that gets it done, and is so efficient at times. But sometimes it doesn't hurt to just put it up on the rim and let your guys go and get it, because everybody's chasing you. And so those are the 2 things I would say that I hope he starts to try to get into a little more. But ultimately, Braden's going to do what he does because he's one of the best players in the country, and you got to just trust him and live with whatever results that he's going for.
That was a pass to Wilberg. There's no doubt in my mind that was a pass off the backboard to Wilberg. I don't, from the angle that I was sitting at, it looked like Braden purposely pushed it off the backboard to him. But I will say, you saw Jakari drive in and try to go straight up against Bodo. He is a really good shot blocker, and that did not end well for Jakari. So I understand some of the timidness, I guess, from Braden in that standpoint. I thought there was one time he kicked it out. He should have gone ahead and taken the shot, but you got a shot blocker down there that can certainly affect stuff. From Fletcher's standpoint,
Jack Carey agrees with you, saying was 10,000% a pass. So that's interesting. I guess I didn't really think about that.
Yeah. From Fletcher's standpoint here, Joe, just, not a big game necessarily from a shooting standpoint, only 1 of 4. I actually thought High Point did a really good job just taking him away. They were super physical with him on the perimeter every time that Purdue was trying to run him off of actions. And sometimes we get some people in the comments or on the social media sites that are like, Fletch has got to take 10 shots. He's got to take 6, 7, 8 threes. This is a game where they just never really gave him an opportunity to do so. He gets in the lane and hits that little fadeaway, and that's his only made field goal of the game. But there certainly weren't shots that he was passing up. He just had a hard time getting open the way they were defending him.
And that's can still be a positive for Purdue, especially when High Point's in that drop coverage that Braden and TKR just eat up. I know, right, I think we put a lot of how much, how important was Lawyer to this team by how many threes he made or things like that. But there is the argument that he just simply standing on the perimeter is so beneficial for this offense because it creates so much more space for Braden and TKR to operate. You're looking at, right, in my opinion, the best 2-man pick and roll game in the entire country, Braden and TKR. You want to give them as much space as possible to operate. Now, Colvin and Heidi and Jakari and CJ, they still get some respect, but nothing like Lawyer. Teams at times, I think, will be in this game too. All right, if Braden and TKR are going to put up, 40 shots, we're hoping they go 18 of 40 and nobody else gets going. We cannot let Lawyer gets going because, right, if Braden has 20 and TKR has 20 and then Lawyer has 17, you're not beating that. So you're just not going to beat that most games. So, right, him just simply being out there, I think, can be a beneficial thing, right? I don't think he was forcing too much because sometimes I think he can get to that where, right, he's just wants to get involved, and so he starts forcing. I didn't think he really did that, which is still good. And then defensively, he definitely had a couple mistakes, but right, they tried attacking him a little bit, scored a little bit on him, but it wasn't some games where it's, all right, Lawyer, come here every single time. We're going to put you in this every single time defensively. I don't know. I guess if Lawyer's fine defensively, then him just simply being out there offensively probably weighs more to Painter than maybe getting a little bit of a bump defensively, if that makes sense.
I guess my question to you, Kraig, is, I know you got in late last night, but from your coverage, obviously at the game, watching pregame warmups, and then I don't know what was said in the postgame pressers, but how much of a hindrance, obviously he had the arm sleeve on, but is there, it kind of just felt like there was some kind of hindrance to the injury, the elbow sprain in terms of his ability.
I don't think there's anything there. He seemed fine. He seemed fine in warm-ups, seemed fine in practice yesterday from what everybody else said that was there. I just think it was the way they were defending him in general. And I mean, it's not his shooting arm, right? It's his off arm. So obviously injury and pain can still affect things, but I don't think that was it. I think High Point just had a really good game plan on Fletch and executed it really well. We are 54 minutes into this show, and I know there's a lot of games on that everybody else wants to get to and watch. Let's dive into the starred comments, and then if we want to wrap anything up with final thoughts, Joe.
And I'll let you guys handle it. I got some more work to do here at the studio. Definitely wanted to hop in and celebrate with you guys after a big win. Kraig doesn't have to adjust his flight schedule and take a red eye back home. Now he gets to enjoy the full weekend in beautiful Providence, and now you're going to continue to give us great content from out there. And I don't know if you guys plan on doing a preview show tomorrow or whatever, but I think I'm going to let you guys handle the rest of this show the rest of the way, so I don't do any kind of Midwestern goodbye, so I can let you guys enjoy the rest of your day in the tournament, and I can also get home to try to enjoy tonight, because now we get a day and a half before we go back to stressing about our team. We can watch some basketball.
Yeah, that's the quick side note is I was debating whether I liked Purdue being this early or not, and I think it was with a win, Purdue being like the first game is awesome because I can just enjoy hoops the rest of the day. With the loss, though, it's right. It would have been a little bit of a different story, but hey, they win, so now we get to enjoy
Well,
hoops.
if you're a Bears fan and you watch CHGO Bears, that's why I'm decked out of my gear. We did a show earlier today, a couple shows, and we were live on the air. Our Central Time, the game started at 11:40, and we were live on the air from 12 p.m. Central till about 1:15. And so you can actively watch me try to talk Bears for an hour and 15 and do my job while I also have the game on in front of me with an iPad. And there was a few times where I like just completely was going off the rails, reacting to the game while trying to stay professional here in the studio. So it was a lot of fun. So if you're a Bears fan and a Boiler fan, you can tune into that and share in my stress. But now we get to have some fun, watch some games, come back here on Saturday and reconvene. And let's hope Purdue can move on to the second weekend. But this is a great start here to the tournament. And as I said before, I give this team, the head coach, all these players, a lot of credit for showing the composure in that moment and not letting another, Cinderella darling have their number, here in the first round. So maybe, getting to the national championship, getting to the Final Four has kind of rid them a little bit. You're never safe from those moments. Anybody's susceptible to getting beat in the tournament any given year. But I think this particular group has been through it so many times that they weren't going to let it happen today. So that was a lot of fun. So I'll let you guys go. Appreciate you letting me jump on and extend the show a little bit, but I'll catch you guys here down the road.
Yep. Appreciate you hopping on, Braggs.
Start comments, Joe. Chris Kinder. We've officially reached the point where Braden has a 26 game and people are saying it was a bad Braden game. This was not in reference to anything that we said. I think this was before we even got in and was in reference to either comments in the chat or things that announcers maybe said that were covering the game. I would just say, yeah, like that's where we're at of, obviously Joe and I, neither one of us talked about him having a bad game, just offensively shot making wasn't there for him particularly today. But when you're Zach Edey, when you're Braden Smith, when you're first team All-American, everybody holds you to a little bit different standards. So if there was some pushback maybe from, I don't know, what True TV announcers, broadcasters, whatever, saying that it wasn't his best game relative to Braden Smith, it wasn't, right? But he was still really, really impactful and is still the best player on the court in today's game, most likely.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like when you're that good, you get held to a different level. And 26-3 in a win, when you're that good, I guess, because of the efficiency, right? He still played really well. It's just shots didn't fall. That's going to happen.
Yep. SLK Boiler says, Joe and Kraig, were you ever thinking we weren't going to win? I'll let you answer that first, Joe.
I don't think there was ever a point where I was like, Purdue's going to lose. I do think when it's got to 3, it was like, like that was the only point where I was just like, I was very worried at that point, but it wasn't even at that point that I was like, oh, Purdue lost this, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I'm honestly, the moment that I mean, getting down to 3 scared me, but the moment that scared me the most was when Braden short armed that little 2-footer. Cause I was just like,
yeah,
some of these games where Purdue has lost to double-digit seeds, it's just been like shots don't go in that always go in, or just kind of crazy things happen that haven't happened all year. And I'm like, man, if Braden's missing that, like maybe we are in trouble down the stretch of this game. But I don't know that I ever was like, oh man, we're losing this game.
Yeah.
Or anything like that. Not even to the point of like the FDU type of game. So, all right. Tommy Wallen. Yes, we didn't have to say goodbye to Kraig. I forgot when we did the show the other day. As soon as we got done with the show, Joe's like, so am I doing the show alone after this game? Because Kraig already told us he has a Bears thing he has to do. And I was like, all right. Luckily for me, 2 things. One, at these games, they're really tight on schedule with all the press conferences, so they got done really quickly. Unlike after home or away games, sometimes coaches take however long they want to get there. And secondly, like I said, this setup in Providence is awesome. It took me like 4 or 5 minutes to walk back to the hotel. So actually should be really easy for me to hop on these after both games. Chris R., Joe, when you broke down High Point, did they play as slow of a pace as they did in the first half? Only 53 field goal attempts for them today. Some of that was that they couldn't get a rebound. But anyway, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I think Purdue definitely controlled the tempo and played slower than what they wanted. It was mentioned High Point like wanted to get out and run. They've like the way I describe High Point, they are not a run and gun team, right? They are not a Alabama or just like those types of teams that's just like go, 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 go. But they will push, and what they want to do is get a little bit quicker and get into their offense. That way they can generate shots quickly in the half court. And I thought Purdue did a really good job of controlling that. Side note, Kraig, check the private chat if you didn't already.
I did.
Okay. But yeah, no, I think Purdue controlled the tempo for 40 minutes. And like at the end of the day, that is a net positive for Purdue where they get to get in their stuff. They force teams to really work. And that's a good recipe for Purdue. I think for the most part, could maybe mix in a couple more fast breaks, but that's about it.
Yep. 100%. Salty B, $10. Super chat. Thank you very much for your support of the show. We appreciate it. Everybody's support, whether it's just watching the show or whether it's contributing, like Joe said, that helps us to be able to go and cover things like this, or next weekend when we play in Indianapolis, because we will be. Have faith. Survive in advance. Great post game, even though I missed most of it. It will be up for rewatching for anybody who wants to do that, and I assume on Apple and Spotify later. Joe and I will have something pregame wise. I assume we're going to do something in the morning before games start.
We can.
Okay. All right. We going live or record?
Let's talk off air and figure it out.
Yeah, this is we decide business decisions right on air, guys. But we will most likely have something up at some point before we go into this game on Saturday. We don't know a specific time yet, but you can bet that it's probably going to be obviously the first game that's played in this location. And since it's on the East Coast, I would expect a relatively early tip time again. Anything else, Joe, as we wrap up?
McNeese is up 20. Clemson made a little bit of an early run, but 17 minutes left. It looks like it's going to be McNeese, and we'll have some sort of preview out. I don't know if it's 10 minutes. I don't know if it's 30 minutes. I don't know if it'll be a live show, but we'll have something out.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks to everybody for watching. And as always, Boiler up.